A very good afternoon. Welcome to yet another edition of Yes 101's Visual Radio. I'm Theruni Karunaratne. Let's start off with your news here at home. IMF staff and the Sri Lankan authorities have reached a staff-level agreement on economic policies to conclude the third review of Sri Lanka's economic reform program supported by the IMF's Extended Fund Facility or EFF. Once the review is approved by IMF management and completed by the IMF Executive Board, Sri Lanka will have access to about $333 million in financing.
We have reached staff-level agreement with the Sri Lankan authorities on the third review under the 4-year Extended Fund Facility supported program. The agreement at the staff level is subject to the approval of IMF management and the IMF Executive Board. Completion of the review by the IMF Executive Board requires the implementation by the authorities of prior actions, including the submission of a 2025 budget consistent with program objectives, and it also requires confirming that the program remains adequately financed. Upon completion of the Executive Board review, Sri Lanka would have access to about $330 million. This would bring IMF financial support disbursed under the arrangement to a total of about $1.3 billion. Sri Lanka's ambitious reform agenda supported by the EFF is delivering commendable outcomes. Progress with respect to the reform agenda under the EFF. I would like to point out that program performance has been strong. The new government's commitment to the program objectives has enhanced confidence and ensures policy continuity. Sustaining the reform momentum is critical to safeguarding the hard-won gains of the program. It is also critical to put the economy on a path towards lasting recovery and stable and inclusive growth. Since the crisis has affected Sri Lanka's entire population, it will be important to ensure that the benefits from the economic growth are shared appropriately across the population. Now, let me emphasize here that the government has an important responsibility to protect the poor and vulnerable at this difficult time. It is important to redouble efforts to meet the program's minimum spending target on social spending and to improve targeting, adequacy and coverage of social safety nets, particularly Asvisuma. Sri Lanka's recent agreement in principle with bondholders is an important milestone. It puts Sri Lanka's debt on a path towards sustainability. The critical next steps are to complete the commercial debt restructuring, finalize bilateral agreements with official creditors along the lines of the accord with the Official Creditor Committee, and implement the terms of the other agreements. This will help restore Sri Lanka's debt sustainability.
On to more local news now. The police advises the general public to exercise caution when travelling during the school holidays. Police media spokesman Deputy Inspector General of Police Nihal Thaldua has urged the general public to be careful while driving and bathing at different locations. He also emphasized the importance of being particularly vigilant with young children around. Let's now move on to international news.
International news.
Lebanon's health ministry has said that Israeli airstrikes killed a hospital director at his home in northeastern Lebanon along with 6 others, while at least 5 paramedics were killed by Israeli strikes at the country's south yesterday. In Gaza, Israeli strikes hit the Kamal Adwan Hospital, one of the few hospitals still partially operating in the northernmost part of the territory, wounding 9 medical staff and damaging its generator as well as its oxygen systems. Now, the Israeli military said it did not know of any strikes in the area. Let's now move on to your sports news.
Sports news.
Alyssa Healy has been ruled out of Australia's upcoming Women's ODI series against India, with 21-year-old Georgia Ball called up for her first international squad following some stunning domestic form. Healy will miss the 3-match home ODI series against India that starts on the 5th of December in Brisbane due to a knee injury, and her availability for the following series against New Zealand in New Zealand still remains unknown. Well, that brings to a close this edition of Yes 101's Visual Radio. I'm Theruni Karunaratne. Stay tuned with News First for more of the very latest.